Well, good afternoon. I guess we're ready to start. Good afternoon, y'all. Welcome to the yet another meeting of the Columbus Districting Commission. Again, I think it's helpful for us each time to go around and introduce ourselves. My name is Mark D'Antonio. I'm the Muskogee County Probate Court Judge. Chief?
Gorin, retired Columbus Police Department.
Gloria Strode, I was your 2010 Census Liaison and your 2020 Census Liaison from the Atlanta Regional Census Center.
Dave Rowetter, I'm a trial lawyer with Littner and Deganian.
I'm Mary Sue Pollies, and I am a former school board member.
Dominic Perkins, and I'm a political consultant.
Oscar Days, pastor of Grant Chapel and educator at Chattahoochee County Elementary.
Byron Hickey, retired Columbus Police Department.
U.D. Roberts with Brentwood Christian Press.
I think it's the, this one.
What's the black one in front of the mic?
Yes, let me show you. Yeah.
Katie Bishop with Yala PR.
Ed Roldan, Muskogee County Board of Elections, and retired military.
Jerome Williams, NAACP, Prince Hall Masons.
Well, thank you all again for being here. At this time, I'd like to call on U.D. Roberts for an invocation.
Lord, we just thank you for this time to come together and to discuss the business of the city and to represent our citizens, especially the demographic area. We just pray, Lord, that you would just give us good wisdom and guidance in all that we do tonight. And we just thank you for this opportunity to serve and to serve this community. And we just thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Well, my goals tonight, again, are to help us hopefully really hash out everything. We've had a number of scenarios presented. We have it even more presented over the Thanksgiving holiday. And as I said, if we could come to where we're narrowing it down so that we can then have a final vote on Saturday in record time so no one would miss any football game that might be going on, I think that would make a lot of sense. At this point, it's my understanding that the minutes have been circulated to everybody. Has anyone had an opportunity to review those?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes. Dave Rowetter.
Do we have a second? Okay. Discussion? They're approved. At this time, I'll call on, for hopefully our last PowerPoint presentation, I'll call on Ms. Hodge.
Normally they turn the mic on, but so our census numbers for 2020 is at 119,814. That is without the Fort Benning numbers of 7,108. And this is the demographic information for the 199,814. And also provided is the 2010 census data and the demographics from 2010. So the target number for each of the 8 districts is the 24,977. And again, what we've tried to do in each one of the scenarios is to know that each district is not going to meet exactly what that ideal population range is. And so there is a variance that's allowed plus or minus 250 plus or minus for that variance for 1%. So we're looking at 24,727 through 25,227. And this is how each one of the districts started and which ones they're adjacent to. So any adjustments that are made to one particular district kind of has a domino effect moving throughout those other districts. So what I've included in here is all the scenarios that you've looked at. A and B were removed earlier, so it's C, D, E, F, scenario G, and H, which you have reviewed at the last meeting. And then scenario I, what we did with I and J was to look at only districts 5 and 6, and to make some adjustments between 5 and 6. None of the other districts in scenario I or J were adjusted at all, only District 5 and 6. And that was based on a request to put some of the things back into District 6 that was in District 6 before, which included Flat Rock Park and Midland Commons. So those were the only changes that were made between District 5 and District 6. And then J, the difference between I and J is really the changes for District 7 and how those changes are incorporated to add population to District 7. So those are the only differences between I and J, was that of District 7 and where that population changes is. So we now have scenarios C through J for the commission to discuss. And we've also provided the demographic information for each one of those scenarios, and all of them are within in District I and J scenarios, except for District 8. Instead of 3%, it's off 5 and almost 5% on scenario J. And so we'll turn it over to the commission, and obviously if there's any questions, we're happy to respond to any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Hodge. Does anyone have any questions of Ms. Hodge or the folks that put this together? Hearing none, thank you. And we can take a minute or two to review what we have, and then I'm going to open it up to the commission to discuss what we're thinking.
Hey, Mr. Chair, am I in order if, I know Mr. Roberts took and passed out a sheet. Am I in order for him to ask him to give an explanation of this sheet while we were perusing?
Yes, please.
Sure, I'll be glad to explain it. I took the demographics that we have, in details, and I just put it on a one-page sheet. Didn't use the computer, I obviously just did it by hand, just to show, especially in the area of, I put a check mark if the particular situation did not dilute. And so it's on one page, and you can just sort of see what would happen, and you'll notice on 8, it didn't, all the way back to D through J, it has been out of variance the entire time, I guess, and I think it's the best it looks like it can be at this place is less than 5%. And I put on the bottom of there, just showing that, but showing how, I guess, changing though, any other ones, changing something's going to move them all around. This sort of gives me a picture, just trying to understand all the graphics. It helped me. So to see that we've moved, personally, I like J. That's my personal, after going through this process, if we can't fix 8, which it sounds like it would be problematic, I personally like J because it takes the variance under 5%.
Anyone have any questions of the chart that Mr. Roberts provided?
Yes, sir, Judge.
Go ahead.
Mr. Roberts, you said it does not dilute. What is it not diluting?
It's the red, means the racial, that's what that means. If you go look at, let's say District 1.
Okay, can we look at District 3? I see
If you look at
Counselor
District
Huff
3,
and Ms.
if you look at
Jackson.
District 3 on here, there's nothing in red, so all of District 3 is within the variance. It's within the 3%.
Right, it is within the 3%, but it did dilute some.
But it's not highlighted in red, it's all
Right,
over.
it's not highlighted in red.
Right,
but
same in 6. 6 did the same thing. There was a variance in 6, slightly.
Right, but I want to make sure that
Okay.
I'm clear.
Right, I'm just talking, the highlighted in red that showed the variance.
Right,
Is what I picked
so-
up. Yes.
So this is your personal analysis, this sheet
I
that you
picked up
shared with us?
the red, and if it had no red marks, like on 3, then I did not
Okay.
note it.
But we do have a difference in the,
There are some slight in all of them, in 6 too.
right, and I do understand that, but my particular question was being diluted in District 3.
Right.
Because at one point, you know, we were at 82%, and then we're moving, as we go down to some of the other scenarios, it's at
Correct.
79. And because Counselor Huff is here and Ms. Jackson from the school board, I know that it's concerning
Sure,
for them.
sure.
Thank you.
But just as a point of clarification it's dilution based upon the census numbers, right?
Yeah.
So if the census says 80%, if it is the variant of if it's above 2%, then it would be considered diluted.
So the way this demographic sheet was done was it took that column, the second set of numbers, which is the existing district 2020. And it is a comparison, the ones that are in red is a comparison to that column
Right.
only. And now that column, there were some that were above the ideal target and some that were
Right.
below. So just based on the 2020 census data, what did that district with the existing lines look like, and what did that demographics look like? So for District 3, is the one Ms. Strode was pointing out, for 2020, the total population was 24,996, and that has the demographic information. And scenario J, which I think was one that Mr. Roberts pointed out, is 24,974, so about a difference of 20 people, and it did adjust the demographics slightly from 80.32% to 79.81% in that comparison. So the only ones that are in red is if that percentage change was more than 3%.
Which is, by definition, diluted. That's the percentage in which we say we should be
3%
concerned.
was a-
That was the number 3% that I used when I put the demographics,
Right.
but I don't know that they're as.
I don't know
Ms.
that there
Sheftal
is a
had mentioned.
definition
Okay.
per
Yes.
se.
That's correct. This
Okay.
was just to
So-
give you somewhere to start, and that was a number that I selected was the 3%, so you
Right.
could just see where those variants were.
So to clarify what Mr. Roberts gave out, if there's a greater than a 3% change in terms of a dilution of minorities,
Right.
then that's reflected in, without having the checks on it. Is that a way to understand the chart?
That's right.
Well, and I also, and actually, Ms. Hodge, while you have something in your, while you're drinking some water, if I recall, I and J, that does change the population numbers a little bit. Is that?
Yes, I and J. The difference between I and J, after we made the adjustments for 5 and 6, those population changes, but the difference came down to District 7, and whether District 7 needed to grow. That population with the existing lines and the 2020 data was 20,798, so it needed to grow by about 4,000. And so the difference between I and J looks at pulling population from portion of District 3 and then also from District 8. And so the difference between I and J, if you look at this map, you can see District 7, this is J, and it pulls more from District 8 and a small portion offset with District 3. And then you can see I pulls from the northern section of District 7 for District 8 and nothing from District 3. So that's just the difference between those two.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions or comments?
Excuse me, Mr. Johnson, I know that Ms. Bishop had made a request, and we were talking about Council District 8, and you said that there was nothing, you looked at that, and there was nothing that could be done with it, so move on. Is that correct? I mean, is that my interpretation?
Yeah, we looked at District 8 and pulling from, because obviously District 8 can pull from 2, it can pull from 5, small portion in 3, and then District 7. And so we tried to move around District 8, and it would make changes in the other districts that would change their demographic information to a point where those would then be in the red. So this, I think, was the best that we could do with District 8 without making changes to the other districts. And part of it had to do with in District 5, where the school board member is, down in that kind of little hook. That prevented us from pulling that section into District 8. Otherwise, we would displace an incumbent, which we were steering away from doing that.
Thank you.
I just to touch on that again, just for the record for District 8, and just to make sure we know this as a group, from 2010 to 2020, there was a huge demographic shift in District 8. And that's an important district, and if you see that huge shift, you saw the white population decrease by 10%, and the black population increase by 7%. And then in response to that, in scenario J, we are then decreasing the black population in that district by 5%, and we're increasing the white population by 4%. So that is my concern, and I just want that on record for District 8.
My mic was off again. Are there concerns about us going around the room, so to speak? I mean, I sort of thought it would be helpful for folks to sort of let everyone know where they're coming from at this point, and that way, hopefully it'll move the vote along quicker this coming Saturday. And if you don't want to express something, that's fine too, but like I said, my thought is the more we move this along, the better. Ms. Pollies, do you have some thoughts?
Well, I was thinking about what Ms. Bishop said, and of course, that could be, theoretically, could be fixed by dipping into District 3, picking up more African-American votes, and that would further lessen the percentage in District 3, which is what what Gloria was just talking about. So, you know, I said the main thing I've learned here is it's like squeezing air in a balloon. There is no way to fix every single thing without affecting every other thing, so.
What you give from one takes from the other.
Right, and so, you know, I have no objections to, I think these last iterations, I and J, I have no objections to them.
Okay.
And I do thank the staff for continuing to try to address problems and.
Why don't we work towards me?
My mind still isn't made up. I think some of the later iterations in the GH and I and J are all acceptable. And now it's just a matter of, you know, can we all find consensus on the, for District 8, because that's the one thing that gives me the most heartburn. And if all of y'all and y'all's hard work have exhausted every opportunity to make sure that those changes aren't as big as they are, well, I think we know, and I think from Ms. Shefthal that there's really no clear answer about what's acceptable as far as a number as dilution goes, and I would tend to err on the side of picking whatever choice has the least impact or the least ability to dilute the population in these respective districts. So I think that's kind of where I'm landing, in a roundabout answer from a lawyer.
That sounds like a perfectly adequate answer. Ms. Strode?
Thank you, Judge. For me, I just think it's important that the public is heard. And in a sidebar conversation in the previous meeting, when this is all over, and I think Rick Jones told us this at the swearing in, wherever you are, you have to be prepared to have the conversation with people, whether it's at church or Publix. So for me, it's important that the representatives are heard and the citizens before we take the final vote. I think that's very important. Thank you.
Mr. Bourne, do you have any thoughts?
Well, I'm kind of locked in on either I or J. I think they're both good plans. I have looked at them. I took into consideration Council District 8, and once that was rectified, then that put me back on I and J. And I think that I'll be willing to vote on either one of those scenarios.
Thank you. Mr. Williams?
Thank you, Judge. I'm still on the fence here, but I've been looking through the, first and foremost, I want to thank you all for your tedious work and stuff, for going back and forth, doing these maps and things. I don't know how hard it was, but I appreciate you. But however, just looking at numbers and things, between the last 4, G through J, I haven't made up my mind just yet, so hopefully I can pray about it and be ready to vote by Saturday if that is the case.
No, in general terms, I'm tending to vote right now for I and J. I don't have no major concerns, and I appreciate the transparency and also the work that have been done by the staff and the city on this. Thank you.
Ms. Bishop?
I'm undecided as of now. I think I've kind of voiced my concern about District 8. And I know that we've exhausted a lot of efforts to try to reconfigure that, and I know y'all worked on it really hard, and I appreciate that. I think kind of my last just thought and idea, and maybe they did look at this scenario, is all incumbents aside, if we were to just say, let's not worry about the incumbents and where they live, is that part of the exhausted effort that we did?
I think if we, just to talk about that, I do, when we talked about guiding principles initially, we were talking about perhaps it's better for the voters to decide whether incumbents should be moved out of their district or not. But I think you keyed in on the key point that's made this very challenging. We need the incumbents to live in the center of their districts.
It's difficult, especially when it gets down to this. I mean, this is,
But
again,
I
it's
think
not
we
going to
also
be
have
done.
to be mindful that we want to work with the school district and,
Yes.
and that, as I said, this is not, if this was easy, we would have been done.
Right.
Mr. Roberts?
Yes, I personally like I or J personally, and I just think J, I lean that way because it's less than 5% with a variance. I think that I would, if I had to err, I'd do that. To go backward to the other ones, we have listened to the counselors who had communities of interest, which I appreciate, and some of their concerns. So we've incorporated those all the way to IJ. So that's my personal preference. Those two, or I'm leaning toward J. The only thing Saturday is we're having the widows banquet at church at noon. So I will be out of here before that. So I don't mind coming at 10, but we're having the widows banquet, and that is my priority. I hate to say that, but that is.
That makes perfect sense to me. Mr. Hickey?
First of all, I'd like to say thank you again to Ms. Hodge and Mr. Johnson for the hard work that you all have put into this.
Absolutely.
And I'm very impressed with the work that y'all have done, so thank you very much. I've been leaning towards, after reviewing everything, I've been leaning towards H, I, or J. And also, I would just like to piggyback on what Ms. Strode said earlier about hearing from the public and from members of these different districts that's holding these offices, that I think it's very important that we're able to hear from them as well. So that's where I'm at. Thank you.
Okay, anyone up front here want to start talking?
I'm leaning towards I or J, and you probably J, because I think overall it makes the numbers are closest to what the actual census numbers are, and I think that's what our goal is. I know number 8's a little off, but it's still overall to get all of the districts right. That is the best option in my opinion, and it's probably where I'll be leaning toward.
I too would like to thank you all for all your hard work that you did and giving us all the information. Excuse me. My choices, at first it was G is my number one choice, but I think it would be H or I. And I'm basing that on looking at what's being taken away from each district. So I did narrow it down to H or I.
Irvin?
Currently, right now, I'm still in the process of making a decision. I'm believing, again, through G through J are good scenarios. When we come back, when we take our regular vote, it'll be between those scenarios, G through J.
Yeah, I think my feedback is going to be pretty similar to what everybody else has said. I think G through J are probably the ones I'm looking at this point, specifically I and J, but I do share some of Ms. Bishop's concerns about District 8 and some of the changes that have been made there, but that's what I'm leaning toward.
Okay. And I appreciate y'all. I think it is helpful to put folks on the spot a little bit if we're going to be in and out of the meeting on Saturday quickly. Although I will want to hear from the public before we have a final vote on Saturday. And actually at this point, I think it would, unless anyone has anything else to add, I think it would be appropriate for us to hear from the public tonight before we adjourn.
I have a question real quick. I understand about hearing from the public. On the website, have there been any questions or comments that has been made on that website? Because I know there was it was posted out there in order to ask people.
And I know that Mr. Underwood, who had been here at the first meeting, did have a comment that I discussed last time about, I'm trying to remember how he put it, prison gerrymandering.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's been anything else that has popped up since then.
That's the only comment that we've received.
Although again, there's opportunity for anyone out there in TV land to go to the website and make comments before Saturday.
Judge, just for the record, we live in a world of technology. We have some older citizens that are not technology proficient. They grew up with the typewriter, and so it's different. So for those of us that use technology all the time, that's why I just think it's important that, you know, people have a chance to be heard.
And I agree with you 100%.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And to comment on that, I agree as well, but when we have 24,000 people here in this city, we do have a lot of people that are techno-savvy that can, or either have the opportunity to come here. Now, and I do respect that everybody can't come during the week and things. I understand that, and a Saturday will be great, but I would expect to see more people here that would be concerned about their city, or either reached out to people that's on the commission about what's going on. So that's kind of disheartening to me and things. So let that be on record for me.
Okay.
Mr. Williams.
Go ahead.
The last meeting we had, I made my own Facebook post, and I shared it to all of the groups that I'm a member of on Facebook. And I know that it's on the commission page. But again, some of us walk around with all of our technology. A lot of that is not happening. So I'm not sure if the information for each meeting has gone out via the media, which they don't have to. It's a public service for someone that worked, you know, with that at a certain place in my career. But what I'm saying is that we live in a different world, those of us that deal with technology. We have a lot of retired military educators. They don't drive at night, but they are concerned people. And so that was what my concern was. But I do agree with you. We have a lot of, the kids are more technology proficient than the grandparents. We know that. So I just want to make sure that the process is transparent and everyone at the end of this journey can say they had access. Thank you, sir.
Well, I appreciate that, and that's why we've had meetings during the middle of the day. We've had meetings in the evening, and we're going to have a meeting on Saturday.
Can I jump in? It's just kind of to piggyback. Are you concerned that this process hasn't been transparent and that the public hasn't been informed of the meetings?
Well, we have not had each meeting. I think the first meeting was on Columbus plans, and then today I checked, it was not there. So last meeting, I made my own, and I sent it around to all of the groups that I'm a member of on Facebook and my friends. Because having served on the Charter Review and other commissions, what will happen when it's all said and done? You will be at church, or you'll be at the grocery store, and people will hem you up for a whole hour having a conversation because they'll feel like the information wasn't put out there. So I'm not saying what we're doing here is not transparent. But if people aren't aware, I have people emailing me, tonight is the meeting. Well, it's because I emailed people to say tonight was the meeting. So if we could, and I see we have Channel 3 here, if we can get some help with making sure people know that the meeting is Saturday, we're going to be taking the vote, and the public will be heard. That would be very helpful if we could do that.
And the meeting is Saturday at 10 o'clock in these chambers. We will hear from the public before taking a vote. Now, in fact, actually right now, unless there's anything else, I'd like to hear from the public that's present tonight.
Think
Go
first,
ahead,
I mean,
Ms. Polly's.
could we make it 9:30 so UD can be here to vote? I think it's kind of bad to have a meeting when somebody, in that we didn't know ahead of time we were going to, you know, how to mark our calendars.
Well, would anyone have an objection? Have we already published a time for the meeting to be at 10? So I think we're stuck with 10.
Oh, we are?
As I said, I don't know that.
Well, for the record, I think we should vote.
I want to hear from the public.
Right.
That's for sure.
Well, I guess we can have another meeting if we lack some of our members.
Well, as
To
long as,
vote.
if there's I'll tell you, we've had probably more meetings than probably most of these commissions have had. And I really would like I would hope we get a great enough attendance that we are getting close to 11 o'clock, but I really think something based upon the experience we're having even tonight, I don't necessarily think that this meeting's going to go more than an hour on Saturday. But I could be wrong. I hope, as I said, I want no one to say that they didn't have an opportunity to be heard. Moreover, even after we vote, people will still have an opportunity to be heard at City Council during the first reading and then a second vote. So is there anything else we need to cover tonight? Otherwise, as I said, I would like to hear from anyone present from the public.
Is the mic on? Okay. Good evening to the commission and my planning group and the elections office, city attorney's office, everyone present. Thank you all for the hard work and your efforts. In looking at G through J, you can see all the effort that was made. I was trying to look at it from an angle of just District 3 and then everyone else. And from what I can tell, G and I and H and J are similar for District 3. So District 3, so far with Vanessa Jackson from the school district and I have been over and over again back here. Things look pretty good for District 3 right now. So we don't have any complaints in our little corner back here. But I always say we have a good group on the city council and we work pretty well together most of the time. So I am, always concerned about them. So I went through other districts while I was sitting here. And other than what was mentioned about 8, it seems like everyone landed where they wanted to be. So hopefully it can be fixed and taken care of and we can work through it. And I'll get on the phone call with District 8 to let him know I still have his back. So thank you all so much. I don't know if there's anything you need from the counselors from the different districts. If you do, please call them. And we'll see who we can get out here to answer any questions ahead of time before Saturday. And again, thank you so very much. I appreciate you.
Well, to be blunt about it, it'll be thrown in council's court after Saturday unless the council elects not to act for 6 months.
Hopefully not.
Okay, is there anyone else from the audience or anyone else that would like to make some comments tonight? Anyone? Council? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll second. Gloria Strode.
Okay, we have a motion and second. Anyone opposed? Thank you all very much. See you on Saturday. I'll be there early.